Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give everyone a minute or two to hop on here, but we will get started in just a few minutes. Thanks for joining us. All right, it looks like we do have a good chunk of everyone with us this afternoon. Thank you all so much for taking part of your week to join us today. This is our fourth spotlight session of the semester for the Master's in Applied Psychology program here at USC. Today we are going to be covering a little bit about the academic and student experience of the Applied Psychology program here at USC. Before we get started today, a few housekeeping things. It's one of those is that all the participants today are muted with their cameras off, and that's just to ensure we have the best connection possible during our presentation. We encourage questions to be asked at any time during the presentation. We'll also have a final Q&A session as well. But there is a Q&A function on everyone's toolbar, and you can feel free to ask any questions as we're going along. I will try to take pauses throughout our event today. And then, of course, at the end, we will address any remaining questions. An agenda for our program today, we're going to start with introductions. We have a couple MAPP representatives with us today. And then we're going to move into our program overview of what applied psychology is, the career outlook, where our alumni are in the field, talk a little bit more about the classes and the requirements for the program to graduate. And then we're going to turn it over to one of our full-time faculty members as she speaks a little bit more about her background and goes through some of the classes that she teaches here in the MAPP program. We also do have a current student with us as well, and we'll go through and learn a little bit more about her background as well as her take on what it's been like being a student as she finishes up her first semester in the MAPP program. And then we'll move on to our admissions requirements for our fall 2021 application cycle and end our event today with a final Q&A session. Starting with introductions, my name is Garrett. I am the admissions counselor for the on-campus applied psychology program here at USC. I'm in my second year with the program. I oversee all of the marketing and recruitment for the program with prospective students. I also do lead our admissions committee for those students that do apply to our on-campus program. So anyone that does have questions, about the program or the admissions process, anything like that, you will more than likely be hearing from me if you have not already received, I'm sure, numerous emails from me already. And we will turn it over to Dr. Breitman.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Samantha Breutman, and I'm full-time faculty member in MAPP, as we call Masters of Science in Applied Psychology program, MAPP. And I'm going on my 6th year working with the program, but my background is more as a practitioner, which is why I'm in this program. And I'll get into that a little bit more when I talk about my classes and my background. But thanks for having me, Garrett, and welcome, everyone.
Thank you so much. And Ava.
Hi everyone, I'm Ava Pomerantz. I'm a current student, so as Garrett said, we're just finishing up our first semester. We're ending by Thanksgiving due to COVID, so it's a busy time. I'm loving the program. I'm also currently in Los Angeles, so if anyone is in Los Angeles, hello to you. And so I'm excited to be here with you all, and I'll tell you a bit more about myself later.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ava. We're going to move into talking a little bit more about what is applied psychology. I do always like to start this portion of our event that applied psychology is very unique in the sense that it's not a clinical application to psychology. So this program isn't necessarily preparing students to become a clinical psychologist or a therapist or a social worker, but it's really teaching students on how to understand human behavior and how human behavior is central to the functions on how to motivate both your employees and how to reach your consumers in both the workplace and the marketplace within business. Our program is a split between both consumer psychology and organizational psychology. And within the consumer psychology realm, the advantages of consumer psychology are to really better understand what consumer purchasing trends are, what impact the consumer decision-making process has, how to communicate persuasively to consumers, and how to build and communicate effective strategic marketing plans to make sure that whatever organization you're working for, the outreach and the marketing and advertising that you are producing to your consumers is actually reaching them so that they will buy or use your product or service. Um, Organizational psychology, which is the other half of our program, the advantages to that side are to learn how to make business decisions based on people-centric data, how to affect large-scale organizational change, how to attract and maintain top talent at your organization, and how to craft more effective employee training programs. I was talking with Ava right before we began our event today, and how, especially in times of COVID times currently, how crucial it is that organizations are reaching both their employees, but also their consumers, as the workplace and the marketplace has changed so drastically since March. And so a lot of what our program is preparing you for is very relevant to the changes that have happened very rapidly since March. And both Samantha and Ava could speak a little bit more about how it can be applied to the current workplace and marketplace today. The career outlook is growing for the field of applied psychology, both on the organizational and the consumer side. Some very common areas that our students will go into, I pulled a few of them. It's to give some context here. Human resources and organizational psychologists, there's said to be a 53% increase in job growth by 2022. Employee training and development, which is also a large area which students go into on the organizational psychology side. There's said to be a 15% increase in job growth. And then in the consumer psychology field, areas of market research and consumer insight is said to have a 23% increase in job growth by 2026. It's our program, in about the 9 years it has been here at USC, has produced about 500 alumni from both our on-campus and our online cohorts, and they're spread all throughout the United States. We have numerous countries represented as well. And they're in many different areas of both organizational and consumer psychology. For those that are interested more on the organizational side, we see students in areas of talent acquisition and talent management. Some might be in human resources. Consulting is very popular, diversity and inclusion, training and development. And then on the consumer side, a lot of students will go into common roles of marketing and advertising, market research. A lot will do consulting as well. And then user experience is also a very up and coming and very popular area of interest within consumer psychology of our graduates. Pretty much any industry, any organization is going to need these types of professionals. And we have students at the Fortune 500 companies, whether that's Amazon or Google or JP Morgan. We have them at the large consulting firms. We have them at nonprofits, at universities. It's really spread where our graduates and where our alumni are that graduate from the MAPP program. I think something that our students really appreciate and we look for in students is that they don't want to be cornered into a particular area that we feel they should go into or what industry is looking for. We want it to be broad enough so that you're able to explore and make sure that your training and career objectives are met by the time you graduate our program. And so there's many different areas as a student that you can go into with getting a degree in applied psychology. I would say the three major points of our program that really make it unique, I would say the first is that it's a challenging accelerated degree. Our on-campus program is typically completed in 1 year. So we're taking a 2 or 3 year master's program and we're condensing it into 9 months, so 2 academic terms. And that includes all of your courses, as well as completing a 240-hour internship and a capstone project. You're really going to start the program in August, and you're going to hit the ground running fast as we really prepare you after 9 months to be very competitive as you're applying for positions post-graduation. Something to note with it being an accelerated degree is that it is unrealistic to work full-time during the program. So we want to make sure that you can really succeed in what our program's requiring, but you also have time to kind of unwind and decompress with family and friends and practice self-care at the same time. You're not doing another 40-hour-a-week job while you're in our on-campus program. If you're needing to continue to work during our program, our online program might be a better option for what you're looking for. Another big thing about our program, I would say, is our faculty. All of our faculty are practitioners in the field and all active practitioners in the field. We feel that having faculty that are just academia based and focused isn't going to help students as much because we really need these faculty to have a pulse on what is happening in industry, to have a great network for students in industry, and can really teach students what industry is needing of our graduates from the MAPP program. They're all very passionate about the role psychologists play in the business setting as well. And our contemporary globally relevant curriculum is also a big draw to our program, where it's going to be very applied through outside of just theory, where you're going to be working on live consulting projects. You'll have real world case studies. You're going to be doing a 240-hour internship, a research capstone, which is going to be applied and hopefully something you can put on your resume. So we really want to make sure that you're not just getting a great education from a top 20 it's national institution, but that you also have very relevant experience, which just really elevates you when you start your job search and internship search in the program and post-graduation. And with our program, it is 34 units total. All students will take the same foundation courses, and then you'll build off with your electives and your practica experiences. With the foundation courses, everyone will take a consumer psychology and organizational psychology course to build a framework, so everyone has the same foundations and competencies met in both of those courses. You will take a research methods and applied psychology course and 2 pro-seminar in human behavior courses, both a foundations and applications course. The practica that's required with our program is going to be an applied psychology internship, where you will find an internship here in the Los Angeles area, and you'll complete 240 hours with that organization. And you'll also be conducting an applied psychologist treatise project. And then you will take 2 elective courses your spring semester. And I have listed here on the right the elective options that are available to students based on what interests you the most. You'll pick 2 of them. We have a cross-cultural psychology course, a group dynamics and leadership course, which Samantha will talk a little bit more in depth about in a few minutes. We have a psychology of employee selection and assessment course, a workshops and quantitative methods course, a user experience or UX course. Oh, I'm sorry. And a psychology of interactive media course. So it'll be a total of 34 units by the time you graduate the program. Something that's also unique with our program is going to be our Dublin internship. And this is an opportunity for students that have an interest of going abroad to complete their 240-hour internship in Dublin, which is said to be the Silicon Valley of Europe currently. You have that option to go abroad, and it'll be right after you walk in May for graduation, and you'll just spend 8 weeks in the summer completing that internship. We've had about 30 students who have completed the Dublin program. And this is great for students that maybe haven't had an opportunity to travel abroad in their undergrad, or maybe really wanting to work with organizations that might have international teams or offices, or just really want that opportunity in a master's program to go abroad. So we partner with an organization called Global Experiences, and they work with all the students that are interested in making sure that while you're going to be in Dublin for 8 weeks, we're placing you at an organization that really matches what you're wanting to do career-wise. So, it's making sure we're not giving you something that is consumer psychology focused if your main career goal is something that's more in the organizational psychology realm. That is an option to students. It does extend the program for those 2 months, but you will still be finishing your master's by end of summer, and it'll still be under a year that you are completing the MAPP program. And at this point, before we move on to Dr. Breutman and with Ava, we have a couple questions here. It's one of those questions, the difference between the on-campus versus online program during COVID-19, and will USC be anticipating an on-campus return for fall 2021? It's a great question. So both of our cohorts, both on campus and our online cohorts, are virtual this semester due to COVID-19. In the spring semester, we do foresee a virtual start as well. For fall of 2021, we are hoping for some sort of in-person instruction to resume, whether that's fully in person or hybrid. But just with the way that COVID is developing, it seems like day to day, week by week, we will not know a more definite answer till probably summertime, but we will let all of our admitted students know what their options are once that decision has been made. I think something that has really helped in the on-campus students that did have to transition virtually is all of our on-campus faculty also teach in our online program. And so I think they were very well equipped to still make these virtual class sessions very meaningful, and where they're still live class sessions. And I'll let Ava speak to that in a few minutes on how that experience has been for her. But I think our faculty were really well equipped to handle that transition for this fall semester with our on-campus cohort. For the Dublin internship, for those students that are interested, it's estimated to be about $6,000 to $8,000 in additional costs. You will have to pay for your transportation out there, as well as your room and board. And we do estimate that to be an additional $6,000 to $8,000. It's for students that are interested in going to Dublin. And for the Dublin internship, the tuition, it's not additional tuition, it's all tuition that you've paid here at USC. It's just the additional cost of going to the program. All right, and at this point, we are going to move on to Dr. Breutman.
Okay, unmuted. Great, thank you, Garrett. You did such a nice job setting all of this up for us. So again, I just want to reiterate, I'm happy to be answering questions as well, either during my presentation or right after. But again, I just wanted to introduce myself. Again, we have actually 5 full-time faculty members and then a number of part-time faculty members that are practitioners or also work in the field. So again, this is just a little bit about my background. I did start more with a business major at UCLA, and then I went more into the clinical psychology realm. But when I discovered that mix between clinical, or actually just psychology and business in the workplace, I was really attracted to this field of industrial organizational psychology. And so at the time when I got my degrees, there were no master's degrees like this program. And I'm sure if there were, I definitely would have chosen to do one. But again, at the time, I just did a doctorate. And again, that's actually, I have no regrets, because here I am able to teach in this program. But basically my experience has been on the organizational side, basically consulting both inside as an internal human resources or professional development employee and consultant in organizations, as well as an external consultant, where again, I've worked in large firms, everything from PricewaterhouseCoopers to more boutique firms that specialize in either specifically leadership development, career development, or organizational change management. And so again, what I love about MAPP is that it really values the work experience that I bring to the table. And one of my favorite parts of my role with MAPP is being able to mentor and guide those earlier in their career that do want similar experiences to what I have and what I'm teaching, and how I can support them and connect them with great leaders in the field, as well as watch them grow in this field as our next generation expands their experiences. Like Garrett mentioned, I do teach the Organizational Psychology Foundation course, and I also teach the elective Group Dynamics and Leadership. And I think I'm going to talk a little bit about each of those classes. But again, I'm not really here today, unfortunately, to represent the consumer side of the program. But please make sure you do check out our website and the other faculty that teaches those other courses. They have very impressive backgrounds and great experience. And what we've really found with MAPP is that it is unique in terms of the combination of consumer and organizational psychology. And then what we find within MAPP and with our experience as practitioners, that common ground of psychology really helps translate to both sides of the field and both sides to organizations. Whereas the consumer focused might be external to a business, internal in organizations, our employees, our customers. So again, we see a lot of combinations of the same psychological constructs that are relevant in both. So we do feel like getting the foundation in both just broadens your career options as well as your just basic fluency in those psychological constructs. So just really quick in terms of the actual foundation course for industrial or organizational psychology, we really start with kind of a broad topic up at the macro, looking at organizational strategy and design and theory. Everything we do in the class, and you can ask Ava if I'm being honest about this or not, is we do try to make sure that it is presented, in both a foundational and theoretical and research-based matter, but also ensuring that it's applied. We're looking at company and organizational examples throughout the curriculum. Some of the fun topics that I love discussing are organizational culture and climate, certainly organizational effectiveness and employee engagement. And then of course we look at common topics for that organizations need our support in terms of leadership development, team effectiveness, and employee well-being. And like Ava mentioned earlier, and Garrett, I mean, the time during COVID, there really has put a highlight on the opportunities with diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging in organizations, as well as the challenge and opportunities to help support work-life balance and employee engagement when many employees have been forced into transitioning into a remote worker. So I think we cover a lot of that in terms of the topics. And then like Garrett mentioned, in terms of the applications, what are the career opportunities based on this content? And it really is everything from internal human resources to external human capital consulting, looking at talent management from everything from the talent acquisition or recruitment process through learning and development, leadership development, and organizational change management. And then of course, the people analytics role is something that our program really prepares the students for in terms of practitioners, irregardless of what their role is how to solve business problems with data. So you really learn to leverage your research methods courses with the content that you're learning in this specific discipline, and then ensure you're being able to support organizations as individual organizations with not really prescriptive recommendations and prescriptive processes, but customized based on the data that really, I could guess, kind of highlights what that organizational's needs are. They know their organization, they know their culture. So how can we support that with data to figure out how to help them best? So that's a bit about the foundation course in organizational psychology. I think if you have questions about the consumer class, I'm going to have Ava be able to help you answer that question. And then I want to highlight my course, Group Dynamics and Leadership, is the elective that I'm super passionate about, and I do love teaching. It's really, again, it's an elective, and it's a lot less reading, and it's not a difficult class, but it is much more applied. It is much more experiential, where we really are focusing, again, on the concepts, obviously, of group and team dynamics, as well as leadership and everything within that leadership process, from executive recruitment recruitment to onboarding to leadership development, as well as succession planning for organizations to set up their future leaders. We also talk and cover group facilitation skills where the students have, the opportunity to really learn the foundations of group facilitation and how that can support them in their career, whether they go into training and development or change management, and certainly as either a team member or even a team leader. So let's see what else. Facilitation. Yeah, that pretty much covers that elective. Like I said, it's not a very difficult class. There's a lot of work, but it is all very experiential and applied. What else do you want me to cover, Garrett?
Thank you so much. If you could just talk a little bit about your role in the treatise process with the students in the program.
Sure. Sorry, well, one of the things as a full-time faculty member is I do play a role as an advisor to many of the students. So I'm certainly an advisor to anybody that wants advisement or mentoring in the program, but there'll be certain students that kind of forge their path maybe more towards the organizational side. At the beginning of the program, we have the students go through a self-assessment on emotional intelligence, and then we as faculty members, we help support them in their development throughout the program and how we can support their personal and professional growth. Through that process, we get to know the students during this first and very intensive semester. We get to know them very well in terms of what maybe their career interests or aspirations are, help them with their internship, selection or just, preparation for their internship applications and interviews and selections. But also they start to think about their treatise. So again, we call what you might be familiar as a master's thesis, we call it a treatise. In MAPP, it is still a Master's of Science and it is still a research project, but again, it is intended to be applied into the field. And the focus really is more on a practitioner applied focus. So often our students are choosing topics that they think might be relevant to a particular organization, a particular industry, maybe a particular demographic like generational or ethnicity. So as faculty, or I'll say, sorry, back to the students, this semester, at the end of the semester, as Ava is clearly probably buried with right now, is conducting that initial literature review, looking at constructs within psychology that she's interested in, and all the students do the same. They look at what is trending in the trade press like Wall Street Journal, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, as well as the literature in terms of the psychology constructs, again, whether it's employee engagement or employee retention, employee well-being, diversity and inclusion. And then they sort of put that together in a proposal for their treatise. And then they work with a faculty member their second semester to complete that treatise research project. And so again, as a faculty member, we're here to help kind of narrow down the scope, make sure they're not biting off more than they can chew in a one semester capstone project, ensuring its relevance to the program and what they've learned, as well as their career interests. And we manage the scope so they don't take on a dissertation or life's work of worth for one semester, but we support them with the scope, we support them with the methodology, and we're really there all along just to ensure they get a product at the end of the program that they're really proud of, and that we've really helped support them as much as we can in the process.
Great, thank you so much, Sam. We actually had a question that came in that I think would be perfect for you to answer. Is the students looking at both our online and in-person program and being very familiar with the online program as well? There's the same educational career objectives and that by the time someone graduates, but what do assignments look like in terms of the classes that you teach, both online and on ground? I would imagine they'd be similar, but if you could just provide some context.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good opportunity for me to highlight that the curriculum for online and on campus are exactly the same. Many of us as faculty and instructors, we teach in both. And so we're really getting the same content in each each platform. And the assignments look very similar despite the online, part-time, geographically dispersed population of our students in the program. They are expected to attend a certain number of live sessions where they do meet synchronously face-to-face on different weeks through the program. They are expected to do just as much group work and collaborative work in the program because, again, that aligns with what the real world and the real workforce is like today. Whether you are co-located with workers or you're in a multinational or just a geographically dispersed organization, you are likely to, have to collaborate remotely with your coworkers. So again, the group work is going to be the same in both. Assignments are usually exactly the same between the two platforms. Really the difference, and I did mention this in a response to a question earlier, is that the one is in a part-time format and the other is in a full-time format. So we see oftentimes a little more diversity in the student body with the online program because you do have more working professionals, maybe those later in their career doing more of a career transition or a career pivot. And they do oftentimes continue to work full-time, and many have families and other responsibilities as well. Again, with our on-campus program, assignments are the same, but there's more of that opportunity for face-to-face because we meet on a every week basis for, again, it's usually about 4 hours or 3 hours and 50 minutes, but with online, Ava has to keep me honest here. As much as I would like to manage Zoom fatigue and have us, reduce that synchronous time, I don't know. My opinion is I'm always having so much fun. My classes are still at least 3 hours long. But again, the format of that 3 hours is really when we are together is intended for us to actually be communicating with each other and working together. It is not about me just talking at them in a lecture format via Zoom. So it is interactive time. It might get kind of exhausting, but I still am hoping that it is fun and a good experience for them. But a lot of our students that are on the on-campus program, again, some have worked full-time for maybe a handful of years, but have decided to take this opportunity to put their full-time career on hold to go into a full-time master's degree program, in person. So honestly, those are really, really the differences that I would say in terms of the delivery, the makeup of the student body, as well as our objectives.
Great. And we're going to move on to Ava in just a second here, but there was one more question for you, Sam, on what are some examples of successful treatise projects from students that you've worked with in the past?
Oh my gosh. I've done so many treatises. Oh my God. They vary from individual treatises where a student, let's see, in the past couple of years, I could highlight a couple of really great projects. One last year where a student was looking at the perception of managerial competence based on millennial managers in the high-tech industry. So got very, very narrow, very specific. Again, that's what we want to see in terms of a, one semester master's research project. Again, just really looking at really just the growth of the young leaders up in Silicon Valley, specifically in the high-tech industry. So that's an example of an individual. Another example of a great individual treatise that did a great job at sort of combining the org side of our program as well as the consumer side. And she looked at the impact of Glassdoor contributions, public contributions on organizations to individuals' perception of potential employers. So she was really looking, and she grabbed all of that content data that she was able to pull down from Glassdoor, do a content analysis on that data, and really just do some follow-ups on themes that she found regarding opinions that people shared about their employers, and then also did an individual study on how that could impact somebody's likelihood to select that employer to apply to or to accept a job from. So those are examples of a couple really cool individual projects. And then, so what do I mean by individual projects? projects. So we also have treatise projects that are consulting projects where we will sometimes have project teams. Will be will be 2 to 3 to 4 people the most working on a consulting project for their treatise, which is really, at the end of the day, it's like a case study. So they still have to come up with their own individual research questions, the angle that they'd like to explore in more depth for that case study project, but yet then they do have a live client that they are doing the work for. So they ultimately have client involvement as well as a client presentation at the end of the treatise. So again, they're still doing the full process, but they're also engaged in a consulting assignment. And some of the fun ones we've done around that, of course, I'm biased to the fun ones that I've done, but we did a consulting project with WAG. That's the dog walking service that we have, I guess, across our country now. We've done change management projects. I've done employee engagement surveys. We've looked at revamping an organization's performance management process. So again, there's a variety of different projects that, again, and these students can apply based on their interest in that type of a project.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sam, for your insight. I hope that was helpful to everyone to hear a little bit more about the classes that she teaches, a little bit more about treatise. And at this point, I would like to spend some time with one of our current cohort members of our on-campus program, Ava, and to get the opportunity to ask her a couple questions to paint a better picture of her background and how she found MAPP and her experience in the program. So Ava, if you could introduce yourself, a little bit about your background before you came to MAPP, and then maybe how you found the MAPP program.
Yeah, sure. So I have a little more of a non-traditional background, and then I'd say most of the MAPP, my cohort members. So I'm from Los Angeles. I went to college at Davidson College, where there's a few members on here from there, but people know because Steph Curry went there, so that's our claim to fame. And I actually studied religious studies. So I really started to get interested more so in psychology of belief and psychology of religion. Wasn't sure where I wanted to go with that, thought maybe social work or therapy. I ended up moving to Jackson, Mississippi to work at a nonprofit called the Institute of Southern Jewish Life. I did some peer mediation work, some literacy work, and some social justice work there. And as I was there, I started to really see the importance of psychology in the work world. And I actually started to look at it through my religious studies lens of it's just a different belief system. The workplace, it has different values, different rituals, different beliefs. And I started to really get interested in the different dynamics and what makes a team work. A lot of the stuff that I'm excited to study in the group dynamics and leadership course with Dr. Broitman. And I knew I wanted to come back to Los Angeles. I found the MAPP program and was super intrigued by it. Even though I was going down the organizational route, which I still am, I loved that you had to learn both sides. And I kind of thought of it as both sides of a story. So you learn the consumer side and you learn the employee side. And something we're taught a lot is to find the intersection where those meet. And it's been really interesting. I didn't think I would like the consumer side as much as I have, which I'm sorry, Dr. Broyman, I already knew I would love our class, but I think Dr. Baraz's class has been surprisingly one of my favorites. And to answer Isaiah's question, we talk a lot about theories, psychological theories in that consumer class, which makes it very interesting because the whole program is applied. So we learn these theories in Dr. Borman's class as well. And then in at least the consumer side, we watch an ad or we do something in the class that will put them in action. Not as much data analytics in that one. We have our research methods class, which is also great, where we focus on data more so in that one. But yeah, so I found the program. It was continues to be what I really imagined. And I think it, as Garrett was saying at the beginning, has been the perfect time, actually, despite the virtual nature, to be in this field, because the work world is changing in front of our eyes, and all the speakers that Dr. Broyman brings in, which has been wonderful. We've had speakers from all over, which is so cool. For Dr. Baraza in consumer psychology, we've had colleagues of his from Denmark. So there's really no restrictions on who you can bring in, but they all talk about, especially in Dr. Broyman's class, how the work world is changing. And so we are getting kind of a firsthand look at it. And actually a lot of the treatise projects, mine included, are based on COVID. So we're really diving into this field that we're living in. And we're still able to connect really well through, I mean, in the on-campus program, we meet every day. So you get to know people's backgrounds. We can tell when people have shifted positions. You can still make friends through it, through all the great group projects, which we're working on. So it's been a really, really awesome experience.
That's great. You hit a lot of, it's areas that I wanted you to touch on, which is great. I would be really interested to hear a little bit, as you reflect on your first semester that you're about to finish, like any standout projects that you've worked on, any great like speakers that really stand out to you, any like professional development that you've done through this first semester that you think has really, it's impacted you in a positive way this semester.
That's a tough one, Garrett. There's truly been a lot. I think first of what Dr. Borman had mentioned with the emotional intelligence survey, I personally am very interested in that. And at the beginning of the program, we had a lot of really awesome workshops on Fridays. So that was one where I really started to see where my personal and professional strengths and weaknesses aligned, and how by changing one in my personal life, it actually changed in the professional world as well, which also Dr. Berman's my mentor in that, and she has helped me through so many things. So I think even despite the virtual setting, you can still connect with professors and feel that you have a mentor in the program, or several mentors. I think, so in the research methods class, we have a semester-long consulting project, which is a really great aspect of the program, because everything you learn in the course is applied directly to that. So you don't learn anything that you're like, what would I ever use this for? The way Dr. Luke, the professor, teaches it is you learn it, you put it to use. This is what you're going to need in the future, which I personally love, because I went to a liberal arts school. I'm very theoretical. And so it's good personally for me to be able to look at tangible ways to navigate the world. And so we are working on a really interesting consumer project, or consumer consulting project with Aon Insurance. So we've been able to work with them. I think they're spread out around New York and Chicago. So again, we've been able to work with them through Zoom calls. And then in the consumer class, we have a group project that we've worked on the whole semester, a marketing project, which has been really cool. So we're in that final stage of it and actually presenting a marketing plan for our product. And then in organizational psychology, I'm actually very excited about our final project. It's on trending topics in organizational psychology. So my group chose what's called the gig economy, and we're actually focusing, for those of you in California, a little bit on Prop 22, which was the Uber Act, and kind of what happened with that, and what does it mean to be a contractor today. So those are some of the few. And then obviously the treatise, which has been a project, and Dr. Leggett teaches a general applied psychology, which has actually been a really great class as well, where we hear from certain parts of psychology that I'd never heard of, like human factor psychology, sort of where technology and humans meet, the user experience one. So that class, we've had several different little projects and a ton of fascinating guest speakers. And I'd say probably my favorite guest speaker, there's a few from Dr. Breutman's class, but one, Naftali Bryant, he's the learning and development director at Netflix, and he did a great team bonding activity with us, a virtual scavenger hunt. And then he also talked about his career, which was really fantastic. We've had another few wonderful people from Google, which was great, Squarespace, Panera, all focusing on like really different aspects of organizational psychology. And in the consumer route, the great speaker we had last week, she is a behavioral scientist on climate change communication in Denmark. And that was one of the most fascinating talks I think I've ever heard. So we have just had, in my point of view, my world has just been open beyond belief. I've been able to connect to so many different people. MAPP has helped me expand my network and realize that I think when I found the field, I was like, are there even any organizational psychologists out there? And now I've met tons of different people in so many different pathways, and there's so many different ways you can go about your career, which is exciting.
Great. Thank you so much, Eva. We actually have two questions that came in for you, to which we can address. It's how was your transition being a non-psychology student into the applied psychology program? How was that transition for you?
Yeah, so I'd taken a few psychology classes in school and I'd always been interested. I did some different readings and whatnot in my 2 years in between and kind of started to form my interest in it through mindfulness as well and a science of well-being class. I'd say at the beginning, I did feel that imposter syndrome feeling that I know people talk about when you start a new job or a new program or whatever it is, where you do feel like, how did I get here? But at this point, I don't feel any different than anyone else. I feel so excited to learn all of the things I didn't get to. And there's so many other experiences that most of our discussion questions are like, how have you noticed something in the world? Or how have you noticed this? So it doesn't feel limiting at all. I sometimes feel like, oh, maybe I'll do a little extra work. Like this summer, we were able to do a statistics class on LinkedIn Learning. We have a great membership to that. So there's a lot of ways, if you feel nervous, that you can supplement that over summer or ask for extra help, but it was a really smooth transition for me.
Great. And we have another question here. It's why did you decide on the MAPP program over some other graduate programs?
Yeah. So it was my top program for sure. I think I wanted to be back in Los Angeles. USC is a fantastic school. I came from a liberal arts school, so I loved that we're only 26 of us right now, but we have the big school network, like the Connect SC, the career network is huge. People are so willing to help you out if you're a USC alum. And the program itself, like I said, the two sides of the story, I really wanted to understand this other side that I honestly didn't have an interest in on that consumer side, and now I definitely do. I also loved the global focus, hoping we go to Dublin, but just even the fact that I'm going to take the cross-cultural class as well, and Dr. Nguyen is focused on, helping businesses work cross-culturally. We read a great book about that. There's a worldly focus that felt like it's beyond just what's going on in LA. And I talked to Dr. Broitman before I came. I talked to so many people who it just felt like a place that was committed to something we talk a lot about, growth mindset and curiosity, and finding ways to incorporate both the academic psychological aspects as well as what Dr. Broitman said, the trade press articles. And I think something as well that I really liked and what Garrett had said, you're not cornered into choosing one pathway. A ton of my friends are taking consumer class and two organizational or different ways because we're encouraged to keep exploring and find those connections despite what your main interest is. You don't have to choose a major, you don't have to choose a focus. You really can make it what it is to you. And to me, that was really exciting. And I just felt like everyone I talked to, everywhere I turned, it seemed like a positive experience.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And it's last question for time purposes here. It's what is the biggest piece of advice or the two biggest pieces of advice to prospective applicants that might be looking at applying to our program in the future?
Yeah, so I'd say one is get face-to-face time, and I guess that would be FaceTime, so virtual FaceTime. I talked to Dr. Broman, as I said, talk to students, you can talk to me, whoever you want, just to get your name out there and get to know the program better. And I'd say the second one is really focus on knowing that it's not a clinical program. This is not a clinical program, so just in your application or wherever your communications, make sure that you know that this is not clinical. It's really everything but from everything we've learned. So that's probably the two. And also be committed to as I said, a growth mindset, which is always growing and learning and changing. I think this program is about curiosity, and for me, it's been awesome in that way. And I think there's a lot of challenges and excitement that go along with all of it, and just knowing like you can get through it and you have a great community to support you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ava, for sharing some of your background and your experience in the program. We could probably talk for hours about the program and about the intricacies. After our program today, I want to make sure we have some time to go through the admissions requirements of the program before we end our event today. But there will be an email with call to actions to connect with all of us on LinkedIn if you'd like to speak further to Samantha or to Ava, or to be connected to other alumni. We're always happy to do that. But we are going to move on into the application requirements portion of our event as we do close out our webinar today. For those that are interested in applying to the MAPP program, we are going to need a completed online application, and it is a $90 fee to apply to the program. We will need a bachelor's degree completed by the start of the program. So we will allow you to apply to the program if your bachelor's degree is still in progress, if you're in your final term or final semester, but we will just need, if you are accepted, your fully official conferred transcripts sent to us before you start classes in August. We will need to see official transcripts as well from all institutions you've attended. This is even that school you might have gone home to in the summer, the local community college to take 1 or 2 courses. We'll need to see all of those transcripts, and USC is very strict with transcripts. So the transcripts do need to come from the institution to USC. It cannot come to my desk and I forward it along. You cannot send it to one of our faculty members to forward along. It cannot come to you to forward along. It needs to come from your institution directly to USC. A lot of institutions are familiar with our graduate admissions office and where to send things to, but please ensure that it is being sent to etrans@usc.edu. So please check in with your registrar's offices if it doesn't list that email address specifically, so we can make sure that it's not being sent to our undergraduate office. We do get thousands of applications each year through all of our programs, and we want to make sure that that is routed correctly. We will also need a statement of purpose. This is going to be 750 words. So our admissions committee is really looking at, in a concise statement of 750 words, why you're choosing MAPP and how you feel MAPP can really help you both meet your educational and career goals. And then also, what experience or background do you have in applied psychology that is leading you to pursue a career in either consumer psychology or organizational psychology. It is up to you on how you'd like to format that or how you'd like to start and end it, but we do ask that it is addressing those 2 questions. Also, to make sure that if you have any mentors or professors or previous supervisors or friends that read over your essay, that is very helpful as well. As you know, we want to make sure, since that statement is really where our admissions committee is getting to know you individually in those 750 words, that there aren't any grammatical errors and the punctuation's correct, everything like that. But that'll be in your statement of purpose. We are going to need to see your professional resume or CV. It is up to you on which one you'd like to provide. We view both of them in the same light. And we're going to be really looking for any experience that's relevant, either through volunteer work or professional experience or internships that's related to organizational or consumer psychology. If you don't have as much work experience, I would definitely say highlight your research experience, any extracurriculars that you were involved in through undergrad or even after you've graduated, and any certifications or professional development or awards that you have received are all very relevant to include on your professional resume or CV. If we could keep these as close to a page as possible, that would be great. So if yours is 4 or 5 pages, please try to condense it down into 1 page. That is very helpful for us. And we'll need 3 letters of recommendation as well. With the letters of recommendation, we do like 1 to be academic and 1 to be professional. And then the third will be up to you as a student. It's depending on what your pool is from who you can choose to write a reference, if you'd like to provide an additional academic or an additional professional reference. Some students that might be joining us today might be out of undergrad for 5 or more years. And in that case, it is completely acceptable to include 3 professional references. We want to make sure that these individuals that are recommending you aren't just writing a couple sentences like, oh, the student sat in the front of the class, they were nice, and I enjoyed them, rather than if you can have a 3rd professional reference really write about your leadership ability and the work you've done for them as an employee. I think that that would hold a lot more weight. So that is something to keep in mind. And we are not requiring the GRE scores for our fall 2021 application. That is actually going to be suspended for this term. So even if you submit it, I will be taking out and redacting those scores. We're not going to be looking at them for fall 2021. We do anticipate them returning fall 2022 for any students that will be applying for future terms. And any students that are international students on the call today, I will work with you all individually as there's some extra steps with English proficiency and financial certification to obtain your visa. But I will make sure you get in contact with the correct individuals to make sure that these extra steps here in italics are covered by the time you apply and if you are accepted into the program. Our fall 2021 application portal is open. A lot of you I see here and our participants have already started applications, which is fantastic. Our priority deadline is going to be January 1st of next year. And then our general deadline will be March 1st of next year. A very common question I get between the differences in the two is that our priority deadline is going to be for those students who have their application materials ready a little earlier by January 1st and would like the opportunity to potentially hear back quicker than those that apply in the general deadline. It is not a guarantee, but there is a chance you could hear back sooner. And then our tenor for fellowship is typically given to those students that apply in our priority pool. So that is something to note. It's regardless, you will hear back no later than end of May, beginning of June on your final admissions decision to our program. The way students pay for our program, the most common way is going to be through self-pay and pulling some sort of loan. It's USC does not offer fully funded. It's master's programs throughout the institution. So either self-pay or through some sort of loan program, as I mentioned, are very common ways to pay for the program. And students, I do encourage, if you are interested in applying for FAFSA, to submit it when you apply to the program, so that if you are accepted, our financial aid office can meet with you right away to discuss it's what you can pull in the different graduate loans and grants that are available to its master's level students here at USC. And the next steps here from our admissions webinar today is going to be to schedule an admissions appointment. It's for those students that are interested in applying to next year. I would suggest scheduling an admissions appointment with me so I can learn more about your background, to create your application account and gather your application materials, and to connect with us on social media and to continually check your email for important updates or announcements. If we're missing anything in your application or we need to get a hold of you, make sure you are checking that pretty regularly. And those would be the next steps with our program. And I know we're right at the end here of our event. And so, I do thank Dr. Breutman and I do thank Ava for joining us. They do have to go to a final and go and continue teaching classes for the day. What I'm going to do is I'll hang on for another 10, 15 minutes for any students that would like to ask any additional questions as we did run out of time here about the program or about the application process. As I mentioned, I will connect everyone with Ava's LinkedIn profile and with Dr. Breutman's LinkedIn profile, so you're welcome to continue conversations with them. But at this point, I will start the Q&A session. I do know that Ava and Dr. Breutman have to go, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Garrett. Thanks you all for attending, and I do hope to hear from any of you that do have additional questions, and certainly look forward to your applications. So thanks, Garrett. Thanks, Ava.
I have to get going. We have a final today, but yes, please reach out and good luck to you all. So thank you. Thanks, Garrett. Bye, Dr. Breutman.
All right, and we do have a couple additional questions here. The priority deadline, as I mentioned, you'll hear as soon as February, March for the first applications that we are making decisions on. As I mentioned, it isn't a guarantee you'll hear back right away, depending on what the applicant pool is and how many we get in the priority pool. So the final deadline that you will hear back is end of May, beginning of June. Another question we have, if your final transcript has any additional colleges on it, do you need to reach out to the additional colleges for separate transcript for those additional classes? Yes. So a lot of institutions, what they do on a final transcript is if you've transferred in credits, they will include those courses that you've transferred in, but you will need to additionally reach out to each one of those schools that you've received credit at and request official transcripts to be mailed, or emailed to USC through an official source like Parchment, so we can do an official GPA calculation. have some more questions here. Can all three letters of recommendation be academic? We like one of them to be professional. So if you have one from a research lab, that would be considered like a professor who oversaw your research or a volunteer coordinator somewhere. We really want one of them to be professional if possible when applying to the program. So on the webpage, it says that the fall admissions deadline is due on January 15th. Is that another important date for applications? That's going to be for our online program. It's the January 1st deadline will be solely for the on-campus program. The January 15th is actually when spring classes start. So you might have seen that online there. So if you're graduating in May 2021, you can, I would suggest making a one-on-one appointment for, if we have not had a one-on-one appointment yet, I would highly, highly suggest it's making that appointment so I can learn more about your career objectives and your experience in the field that might be related to applied psychology. And I'll be able to give you a better gauge if I think that your experience is aligned with previous applicants or if you should maybe get more experience before applying. But since that's such an individualistic question, I'd maybe like to meet it's one-on-one with you as a prospective student. Yes, if you don't have an undergrad degree in psychology, but anything that is relevant, like online certifications in marketing or advertising, if you've taken like a Google Academy course and like market analytics, anything like that, that's all very relevant experience to put on their resume. We understand not all students are going to have robust experience in consumer or organizational psychology, but we as an admissions committee really want to know that there is that initial understanding one, which is huge, and that there's also an initial commitment to the field, whether that's through research or through actual experience or certifications. So for the amount of admitted students each year, there's typically 30 students that start in our cohort every fall is what we aim for and as an admissions committee. If you've traveled abroad in our program, or excuse me, if you've traveled abroad in your undergrad, we will not need to see those abroad transcripts as long as you were abroad a semester or less. If you were abroad for a year, 2 years plus, then we will need to see those transcripts. Most students aren't abroad longer than a semester traditionally, so you will not need to, if it's a semester or less, you will not need to provide transcripts from those international colleges. If you apply for the online spring 2021 term, how long will it take to hear back? It usually takes about a couple weeks here. If you already applied, Gloria, for our online spring 2021 term, we should have decisions in the next couple weeks, as we know that that is starting here. We're already at the end of the year, so it's starting pretty soon. So you should hear back within the next couple weeks on your application decision. If you are more interested in online than on ground, feel free to shoot me an email and I will get you connected with someone with the online program, as I just oversee on ground. And that'll just ensure that you're not having to fill out those requests for information online and going through all those marketing hoops, that I can get you in contact with a live person for the online program. So it's Ava did mention to reach out to different members of the MAPP community, whether that's alumni or professors or current students. It's not something that is required, but it really helps you as a student, as we really know that there are a lot of master's programs that are out there, a lot of different great institutions that you can choose from. And so it's really to your benefit to meet with a prospective or a current student or an alumni or a faculty member if you have questions about their background or their experience in the program. They're the ones that are experts in this field or have done the program themselves and can maybe answer more questions for what it's like either on the academic side or the student side, like Samantha Breutman and Ava did in our webinars today. So you're welcome to reach out to any of them on LinkedIn and to just cold reach out. A lot of our alumni are very, very responsive if you'd like to do an informational interview. It is not possible to apply to both on-ground and online. We would like students to decide one or the other. That does show decisiveness in our admissions committee's eyes when a student can pick one or the other. So we are wanting you to pick one that's best for what you're looking for. With that said, there is an option in the on-ground program that if you apply for on-ground, one of the final questions that is asked is if you are not a fit for on ground, would you consider the online program? And in that case, we will then transfer you over to online if you decide that it's a denied decision. If we decide it's not a fit for on ground, we'll then reach back out and ask you if you'd like to then go for online. If your final transcript has the additional colleges on it, do you need to reach out to the additional colleges for separate transcripts? Yes, you will need to reach out to all colleges with transcripts of any credit that you have received. And it looks like there aren't any additional questions. So another question, it's about our online program. Our online program is typically finished as quickly as 16 to 18 months at the full-time pace of 2 classes per term. And then the part-time pace is closer to 2 years in the online program. There is not a way to complete the online program in 9 months. And the reason for that is the online program, it's whether you do that at the full-time pace or part-time pace, it's really meant for the working professional to continue working full-time during the program, where the on-ground program is not flexible for full-time work. And so we put a little bit more on students' plates to finish in 9 months. So if you are wanting to do 9 months, then the on-ground program would be better in terms of that. All right, and if there's any additional questions, I will stay on for about 5 more minutes here. For anyone that does have any additional questions, I will send out follow-up to everyone. So I do encourage you to reach out at any time. I know graduate school is a big step, so feel free to reach out. My email is here, and we also have an alumni spotlight on December 11th for anyone that is interested in hearing from 2 of our alumni members of previous cohorts and what they're doing in the field, and to give more of their perspective in the MAPP program. And Devin, I will send a link out in my in an email this evening to all of the attendees with a call to action to make an appointment. Alrighty, so I will stay on for anyone that has their questions answered. I thank you so much for joining us today and learning more about the MAPP program. Reach out at any time with further questions, and I look forward to working with you all further.